Hitler's army occupied Minsk in just a week after their invasion into the Soviet Union. Betty's parents, Abraham and Sarah, and sister, Ada, didn't have enough time to evacuate. The front line moved east. The bombing stopped and Germans filled the city streets. It felt as if life had come back to normal, though Abraham was uncertain about the future. He hated the Soviet regime, which had been so unfair to him and his family, and deep inside, he was glad that finally he was revenged, but he also felt very uneasy with the new German government, especially when he read a post on a building wall where the Germans ordered all Jews to move into a ghetto, threatening to kill anybody who disobeyed. Abraham decided to take a chance, trying to be invisible. "Daddy, I heard that they killed Jews for not moving into the ghetto. I think we'd better move there, until it's not too late," Ada suggested. "Why would they gather all the Jews at the same location?" Abraham asked quietly. "I don't know, Daddy." "Why would they kill us if we don't do this?" he asked. "I don't know, Daddy, but they want us either dead or enslaved, baby. That's why. Being dead or enslaved is the same thing. I know from experience." "But, Daddy." "Ada, I'm not holding you, baby. You are young, and your whole life is in front of you, or I hope so. Also, I can't make a decision for you. If you feel that it's better for you to move to a ghetto, please do so. But I'm better off dead than enslaved again. I'm not moving out. If they find me here and kill me, so be it. I have no place to hide or run." Sarah cried. Ada stayed with her parents. The next-door neighbors knew of Abraham's Jewish origin, and at first, they could care less. Then, they found out that if they revealed the Jews' hiding places, the Germans would grant them all the Jews' possessions, and that was a good reason to report Abraham and Sarah to the Germans. A loud knock on the door startled the family, even though they had foreseen it. "Get in there." Abraham pushed Ada into the hiding place that he prepared in advance. She stepped inside and moved to let her parents to get in also, but Abraham shut the trap door in front of her. "Daddy, what are you doing? We all can fit in here." Ada cried. "Stay calm," he ordered. The knock on the door repeated. "Are you ready?" He looked into his beloved wife's tearing and scared eyes. She nodded as a teardrop rolled down from her eyes. Abraham and Sarah had decided to sacrifice themselves to save their daughter's life. "Oh, Sarah, I love you so much." He embraced his wife into his arms. "You are so beautiful." He touched her gray, curly hair and kissed her old wrinkled cheeks, tasting her salty tears. "I'm so sorry, darling, I couldn't make a better life for you. Please forgive me." Then, suddenly, the door was kicked wide open. The Germans walked in and dragged Abraham and Sarah outside. Sarah sobbed. Abraham was quiet. His plan worked. The Germans didn't look for Ada, and at that moment, that was the only concern he had. The Germans brought Abraham and Sarah to the ghetto and tied them together back to back. A crowd of Jews watched in complete silence, as a German officer announced the reason for the event. "If you disobey the order, you die." He aimed his gun at Abraham's head, knowing that the bullet would go through both heads. He wanted to save a bullet. Abraham didn't see his wife, but he felt her with his entire body. She was shaking. He took her hands into his. "I love you, Sarah," he said quietly, and she heard him. "You are the best thing that happened to me in my life." The German pressed the hammer of the gun, and to his satisfaction, a bullet went through both heads, the husband and the wife, but the death didn't do them apart. They fell down, holding each other's hands. Ada stayed in hiding, watching her neighbors vandalizing her things and getting their trophies, a sewing machine and a new drawer cabinet. At night time, she came out and went outside. It was past curfew time. Ada secretly ran from one house to another, hiding from the German patrols in the shadows of trees and houses. The city was big, so it took her the entire night to escape. When the first rays of light touched the earth, she finally found herself outside the city. A wide road went through a field. Ada had no idea where this road went, but she was glad that she could walk there and that nobody was around. She thought about her father's decision, regretting his refusal to move to the ghetto. If only we had moved to the ghetto, they would be alive. She cried. A sound of moving trucks startled her, and she ran away from the road to hide in the tall grass. A couple of German trucks went by. Ada was afraid to go back on the road and continued her way through the field. Then, shots, dogs barking, people screaming, and Germans yelling made her stop. Ada panicked, not knowing where to hide. She rushed around and found herself in a ravine. "It's a good hiding place," she thought, and walked away from the sound, or so she thought. Then, suddenly, shots, barking, screaming, and yelling came from above, and it was louder than before. That was not a place to hide. Shockingly, Ada found herself standing in front of a pile of dead, naked people. She froze in terror, forgetting to keep her head down and hide. She got sick to her stomach and bent down to throw up just in time. Machine gun fire burst above her head and naked bodies fell down, knocking her to the ground and covering her with blood. A little baby's hand, still warm and sweet, landed on Ada's face. She glanced at the baby's face and gasped in horror. She knew the baby, the little daughter of her neighbor, Sonia. She had recently moved from Leningrad to her parents in Minsk because her husband was drafted to the mandatory army a few months prior to the war. Sonia was also lying next to Ada, spreading her arms and legs wide apart to reveal her secret places. Suddenly, Ada realized that the Germans could easily notice her because she was dressed. There was only one place to hide, underneath the dead bodies. She pulled Sonia by the hand and turned her over, covering herself with Sonia's still warm body. Ada lay on her back, afraid to move. The Germans yelled, dogs barked again, and a few naked people approached the edge of the ravine. Those naked people were Ada's friend, Seema, Seema's parents, and her little brother. This can't be happening. She was screaming inside, but horrifically, it was. Seema and her entire family moved to the ghetto not that long ago, and now they were here, standing naked and about to be shot dead. Seema was beautiful. Her body was stunning. The wind fluttered her rich auburn curly long hair, which contrasted marvelously with her pale silky skin. She looked so heavenly on the hill. A German officer approached Seema, giving her a dirty look. "I'll kill you tomorrow, after I sleep with you." "Step away," he ordered. Seema glanced at her father with a smile, revealing a set of shiny white teeth and proudly holding up her chin. Her hand suddenly flew up and embraced the German officer. Her fingers grabbed his hair tight. She pulled his head back down, leaned to him with her entire body, pressing her firm breasts against his fascist uniform, and sunk her teeth deep into his throat. Ruby-red blood rushed out of her mouth as he tried to get rid of her, but she had no remorse and was killing him painfully and slowly, and he couldn't escape this whim of fate, the same way as all those Jews he murdered had no escape from their fate. He choked. The other Germans yelled in panic. They were afraid to shoot. They grabbed Seema, trying to separate her from the officer, but she locked her teeth on his neck tight, and only death could separate them now. The officer fell down, pulling Seema and all the other Germans after him into the ravine, on the pile of dead Jews. Seema locked her teeth into the enemy's throat. A German shot, and a red stream of blood poured from a small hole on her forehead, though her teeth were still locked on the officer's throat. Even in her death, she kept killing him. Finally, the Germans freed the officer, but were not able to save his life. He died in dreadful agony among the Jews he exterminated. Ada lay in the ravine, pretending to be dead, witnessing the Germans murdering Jews all day long in revenge for Seema's kill. At the end of the day, she was buried completely underneath dead bodies, unable to see daylight anymore. At night, when the sounds died down, she got out of the ravine and ran away into the field. She walked the entire night, having no sense of direction. Tiredness made her stop, and she fell into a deep sleep at sunrise. Laughter startled Ada. She wanted to get up, but wasn't able to because somebody grabbed her, covering her mouth. "It's a tasty pussy," a Belarusian man said. "Yes, indeed," another replied. "Oh, look. She's a Jew. We have to report her. They'll waste her anyway. So, why don't we have some fun first? Look at these two boobs." They dragged Ada to a wooden shed, pushed her inside, and her agony begun. They ripped her clothes and stuffed her underwear into her mouth so she wouldn't make too much noise. They raped and beat her one after another, and then again and again. They finally got tired. Ada lied on the ground naked, covered with bruises and blood. She felt humiliated and was in a lot of pain. She just wanted to die and waited for her fate. "When do we report her to the Germans?" one of them asked. "There is no rush. Let's come back here later to have more of her. We can bring her to the Germans any time. Also, we don't have to report her at all. To them, she is just as good dead or alive." "That's true. Also, except pussy, what else we can get from her?" they laughed. "Yeah, you are right. She is good for nothing." He kicked her with his boot, locked the door of the shed, and they walked away. Ada lay on the floor of the shed for some time, but didn't cry and listened. Her brain worked fast. Ada didn't hear any sounds anymore. There was nobody near. She got up and looked around. Everything was blurry. Her face and eyes were swollen from the beating and her vision was unclear, but she found a shovel and a rake in the shed. She thought about Seema, wishing to be as brave as her friend was. She could try to kill these two men with a shovel. She tried to lift it, but the pain in her shoulder from the beating didn't allow her to lift it all the way. She wouldn't be able to overpower them. The wooden planks of the shed were nailed to each other. Ada inspected the joints and found a loose plank. She made her way out of the shed with the shovel and ran away to the forest.